All right, this is your Chapter 8 study guide review for Cambridge. If you're not in Cambridge, you're looking for the other video. If you are in Cambridge, you've come to the right place. Now, your test is on Thursday, so make sure you are prepared. This will go over any questions that you still may have. So question number 1, be extremely familiar with ATP. Know how ATP is formed from ADP and what happens to ATP when the third phosphate group is removed to make ADP. So a lot going on here, but nothing too complex. So this is ATP. You have adenosine, ribose, and you have 3 phosphate groups. This is why it's called adenosine triphosphate, because there's 3 phosphate groups. So it says ATP, know how ATP is formed. ATP is formed from ADP. ADP means adenosine diphosphate, means there's 2 phosphate groups. Well, how do you get a third phosphate group? You simply add it. And then it says know what happens to ATP when the third phosphate group is removed. So here we have 3 bonds. We see the first bond here will provide a little bit of energy. The second bond, a little bit more energy. Third bond, there's a lot of energy. So the bond is broken between the second and third phosphate group to release a lot of energy. This should be spelled A space LOT. That was done by a biology book over in England, but they spelled it wrong. Should be A space LOT, but that's okay. That's a side note. But it says, know when the third phosphate group is removed, and when it's removed and the bond is broken, a lot of energy is released, and you're left with ADP. You're left with 2 phosphate groups. Know what an ATP model looks like. So this is an actual model. We have adenosine, we have ribose, and we have 3 phosphate groups. If we only had 2 phosphate groups, that would be ADP. Because we have 3 in this model, it is ATP. All right, number 3. What do autotrophs produce from the energy they gather from the sun? And I spelled they wrong. It should say THEY. So it's not only England that can't spell, it's me as well. So it says they produce high energy sugars. And these high energy sugars, they are carbohydrates. You need to know both of those. Number 4. What is inside a plant cell that allows the plant to gather the sun's energy? So inside the plant, there are pigments, and we call these pigments chlorophyll. Now, I want to point something out, especially if you were thinking thylakoid. The question is asking what? It's not asking where. If it was asking where, we would say the thylakoid, or more specifically, the thylakoid membrane. We'll see question number, when you see question number 6, we'll be able to go over that. All right, cruising right along. Number 5, what is a thylakoid, and what is a stack of thylakoids called? A thylakoid is an individual piece, and inside the thylakoid membranes you can find chlorophyll, which is where the light-dependent reactions take place, and we call stacks of thylakoids granum. So here you can see in this picture these individual pieces. In class, you guys referred to them as Mentos. Some people referred to them as looking like hockey pucks. Each individual piece is known as a thylakoid. The stacks of thylakoids are known as granum. All right, number 6. Where in the chloroplast can you find the chlorophyll? Remember question 4 asking what? So this question is asking where. And you can find it inside the thylakoid membranes. That's where you're going to find the chlorophyll, right here in these thylakoid membranes. All right, number 7. What molecule or compound is considered an electron carrier? And these are the NADP plus molecules. These are the electron carriers. It becomes NADPH when it's actually carrying those high energy electrons. When it drops off those high energy electrons, it becomes NADP plus. If you're asking where in the world does the H come from, the high energy electrons comes from when you water a plant. You don't water a plant because it's thirsty. You water the plant because it does need those high energy electrons. All right, number 8, why are electron carriers important to a plant cell? The high energy electrons are highly reactive. Remember when we watched the video of that kid sticking the paperclip into the electrical socket? Well, here's another genius doing the same thing. The electrons are highly reactive. Plants have special electron carriers, and the reason they have them is because those electrons are highly reactive. All right, number 9. We know what plants use photosynthesis for, to gather energy. What exactly do plants convert water and carbon dioxide into using the sun's energy? They convert it into 2 things, oxygen and those high energy sugars, which are carbohydrates. We always talk about the high energy sugars that are carbohydrates. Sometimes people leave off the oxygen. Pretty basic question though. Number 10, which byproduct used by plants are crucial for us? If we tried to burn a match on the moon, would this work? Know specifically why related to this byproduct. So the byproduct plants give off that are crucial for us is oxygen. We need to breathe oxygen to release the ATP stored in food. No oxygen means there would be no flame. It says would be flame. It should say no flame. There is no flame. You need oxygen for a flame to burn. That's a critical error that I made. So there would be no flame. Number 11. What are the steps in a light-dependent reaction? So there are some steps that you need to know. One step in there is high-energy electrons move through the electron transport chain. Chlorophyll absorbs sunlight. And ATP synthase allows H+ ions to pass through the thylakoid membrane. Those are the 3 steps that you need to know. Number 12, where are photosystems 1 and 2 found, and which one was discovered first? How are they similar? So photosystems 1 and 2, there's a dead giveaway. It's called a photosystem. Photo means light, so there's only one place that it could happen, inside the chloroplast, and they're going to be found in the thylakoid membrane. Now, photosystem 1 was found first, and scientists thought there was only one. Then they found the second. With that being said, photosystem 2 comes before photosystem 1 in the steps of light-dependent reactions. Scientists didn't want to confuse anybody, so they said, hey, we'll leave photosystem 2 called photosystem 2 because it was discovered second. So with that being said, photosystem 2 comes before photosystem 1. It is called photosystem 2 because it was discovered after photosystem 1. All right, and that's how they're similar. They both deal with absorbing light. All right, number 13, during photosynthesis, there's a flow of electrons. What is the pathway? It goes from water to NADP plus and into the Calvin cycle. That is the flow of electrons. The H2O is a starting point. We said we water plants because they supply the high energy electrons. NADP plus is a special electron carrier that it needs because the electrons are highly reactive, and it goes into the Calvin cycle so it can then make the sugar that the plant uses. Number 14, what is the Calvin cycle and where does it take place? So it is the light-independent reactions, and it takes place in the stroma. Even though it's called light-independent or the light-independent reaction, it can happen during the daytime. It doesn't have to happen at night. A lot of times people say that it's called the dark reaction because it happens at night. That's incorrect. It doesn't only happen at night. It happens all the time during the day as well. And that's because you need, for the light-independent reaction to work, you need the products of the light-dependent reaction, which we'll get to in a little bit. So number 15, how does light intensity affect the rate of photosynthesis? So it actually increases the rate of photosynthesis until it reaches a top speed. And once it reaches its peak, adding more light does not make photosynthesis happen any faster. So it speeds it up until it reaches a certain speed. Once it tops out, adding more light isn't going to make photosynthesis happen faster. Number 16, what is a thylakoid, granum, and stroma? How are these related? So we looked at this earlier. They're related because they're inside the chloroplast. The thylakoids are the individual pieces. The granum are the stacks of those individual pieces, the thylakoids. So granum are the stack of thylakoids. The stroma is the open space. And this open space, or this liquid that is known as a stroma, that's where the Calvin cycle takes place, which is light independent. We know that the Calvin cycle has to take place in the stroma because there are no thylakoids. And inside the thylakoids, you find the chlorophyll, which are the light-absorbing pigments. Granum are the stacks of thylakoids. So once again, you would find the light-absorbing pigments known as chlorophyll. All right, number 17, what is ATP synthase? So it's a membrane protein that allows H+ ions to pass through the thylakoid membrane and into the stroma. So we talked earlier about those. You need the products of the light-dependent reactions to help out the light-independent reactions. This is an example of that. Number 18, how does the rate of photosynthesis change in cold weather? Does it change at all? Yes, it does. It slows down the rate of photosynthesis. It's one of 3 factors that affect photosynthesis. And when we say cold, we mean freezing or below freezing. It can get cold enough that photosynthesis actually stops. Number 19, know why 6 carbon molecules are needed to make one glucose molecule. And it said research. Watching this video is a form of research. So take a look at CO2, which plants take in during photosynthesis. How many molecules do you see? Well, it's CO2. We only see one carbon molecule. Now, how many carbon molecules are in glucose? Well, that's C6H12O6. Well, there are 6 molecules of carbon. So you need 6 molecules of carbon because there are 6 carbon molecules inside glucose. It is that simple. All right, number 20, and getting close to the end here. How are light-dependent and light-independent reactions similar and related? Well, they're both part of the entire process of photosynthesis. Light-independent is not part of cellular respiration. It makes a product used in cellular respiration, but they're both part of photosynthesis. The light-dependent supplies the materials used by the light-independent reactions. The materials made by the light-independent reactions, which is glucose, is used by the plant to make ATP, which is used in the light-dependent reaction, and on the cycle repeats and continues. Number 21, make sure you know the difference between an autotroph and heterotroph. Auto is a dead giveaway here. Autotroph makes its own food for energy, while a heterotroph consumes other organisms for energy. Number 22, how is the storage capacity of glucose and ATP different? Well, there's 90 more times more energy in a molecule of glucose than a molecule of ATP. Should be no semicolon there, just a period. ATP lasts just a few seconds and used by cells for a short amount of time, and that's because it only lasts for a few seconds. Glucose is used by cells to store large amounts of energy for longer amounts of time because glucose can last for a very long time and it has 90 times more energy than a molecule of ATP. Number 23, how does a plant that has varying types of pigment be beneficial to the plant? And what type of light does chlorophyll and carotene absorb? Well, chlorophyll absorbs light in the red and blue regions of the visible light spectrum. And remember, we talked about plants are green, and that's because they reflect green light. They do not absorb green light. Now, carotene absorbs light in other parts of the light spectrum, increasing the range of light from which a plant can absorb energy. And that's why it's beneficial to the plant. So it's not just absorbing red and blue regions of the visible light spectrum. It can absorb many more colors because of the carotene rather than just having the chlorophyll. All right, number 24, what are some various factors that could affect the rate of photosynthesis? There are 3, the amount of light, water, and temperature. Those are the 3 that you need to know. 25 and 26 I combined into one slide because they are related to each other. So how does photosynthesis in a CAM plant differ from photosynthesis in a typical plant? And why would you not find the CAM plant in an aquatic environment? Well, CAM plants open their leaves and allow air in only at night when it is cooler. The plant can actually trap CO2, allowing it to form glucose without always having sunlight. And that's the advantage that CAM plants have and how they differ from photosynthesis in a typical plant. And you're not going to find them in an aquatic environment because they're found in drier areas, and that's why they allow air in only at night. And that's why you're not going to find them in aquatic environments because they're plants that are found in drier environments, and that's why they develop this adaptation. With that being said, that wraps up the Chapter 8 study guide. If you have any questions, you can always text me on Remind. We'll see you guys in class, and good luck on your